Ladies and gentlemen, we are live with Leland Sklar, and if you don't know who he is, well, you should, because he's a legendary bass player. He's played on over 2,000 records. Phil Collins, Toto, and James Taylor are most notably the bands he's actually been on stage with. Welcome to the show, Leland. Thanks for coming out.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, man. I'm excited to hang with you.
And it's an honor to speak with you. Meet me for coffee. Good afternoon to people here in Ontario, Canada, and good morning to everyone out on the West Coast. I got my coffee here, nice Yeti, full of nice black coffee. I thought I'd do that instead of spilling it all over my desk today. So, well, you got an awesome event coming up on March the 4th. It's next Thursday on Fan Room Live. Let's talk about that. What a great opportunity to engage with fans, get people to hear stories that you've never heard before about, James Taylor, Toto, Phil Collins in a different perspective, eh?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm just starting to get details about this, figuring out what it's all about. But I really enjoy interaction with fans and just the community at large. And so I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll try to make it interesting and answer as many questions as I possibly can. I'm totally open to the thing I've always enjoyed most, like when I do clinics or master classes, is the Q&As. That's where things really get interesting. I mean, you can sit and play and that gets just so far, but when people have, these questions that they've always thought about and suddenly they can ask them, it's pretty cool. So I'm really excited about it.
It also helps things go a bit smoother for you, especially if you're a guest speaker or a guest musician, because people ask the questions and you're booked for, an hour or two, it actually fills in the time.
Yeah.
I know many times I've been in front of people speaking and, I have an hour to speak and tell them what's going on or do the presentation. And if it wasn't for engaging people in that conversation or getting them to ask questions, it doesn't stretch it as long sometimes, because
it can be an eternity.
It really can. And, Fan Room Live is an awesome platform for many people who want to connect with celebrities and rock and rollers such as yourself. And I'm really happy to be an affiliate of them. You can pick up your tickets at fanroomlive.com. It's going to be an amazing event. That's next Thursday, March the 4th. Leland Sklar. And you've seen him on this show. You're going to see him on many other shows. And he's really, really popular amongst the session producers around the music industry. Let's talk about you breaking into the session work. I know you're very highly in demand for lots of people. They actually want you to play on the record. How'd you start?
Well, the pivotal point in my career came in 1970, when late 69, 70, where I was in a band here locally in Los Angeles. And our drummer had a friend named John Fishbeck, who owned Crystal Recording Studios here. And he did like Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life and lots of great projects. And he used to come and hang out at our rehearsals. And at one of our rehearsals, he brought a friend of his, an old friend of his who had just gotten back from England. And it was James Taylor. And nobody here really knew who James Taylor was. And he hung out with us at our rehearsals. Well, he got offered a gig at the Troubadour here in Los Angeles. And he needed a bass player for the gig. And he remembered me from this rehearsal. And they tracked me down and asked me to play this gig. And I thought it was going to be one gig. And it turned into the rest of my life. So it's amazing how these things can happen to you. And but I had never been in the studio before, except in the band I was in, Wolfgang, and we cut some demos, and that was my entire studio experience. And then overnight, I suddenly was an in-demand bass player, because everybody was starting to look at James Taylor as like this new vanguard of a new movement in music. And we were very fortunate that Peter Asher, who managed and produced James, insisted that our names appear on the album. And so when people like Jackson Browne and all these different artists would think about their career, they would look at James's record and go, well, hell, if those guys are good enough for James, let's hire them. And the next thing you know, I mean, I was doing 4 sessions a day, 6 days a week. And we were learning on the job how to craft sounds, what the studio etiquette was. I was well aware of the Wrecking Crew and the generation of players before us. And once I started working, I worked with a lot of those people, Hal Blaine and, all of them. But it really was kind of an accident, the whole thing. It was really just having James come to a rehearsal of a band I was in, and we hooked up, and it literally changed my life.
It's so incredible. You've played on over 2,000, records.
Yeah.
I guess you can count a single as a record because you've gone in there to actually record it. But when you walk into a studio to do session work,
Mm-hmm.
do they say, I want you to play it this way, I want this to sound this certain way? Or how do you drop a bass track on a brand new song? Is there direction?
It's different every single day. Some days you go in, there's absolutely nothing planned ahead of time for you, and you maybe sit down with an artist who's playing guitar or something, and they play their song, and then you go and sketch out something for yourself, just in terms of the structure of the song. Other times I go in, there's full charts to everything. It really, my entire career is predicated on the individual song, and the requirement of each song can be very different. So that's one of the things that keeps it interesting to me after all these years and all the songs I've played on, is that literally every time you walk in the studio, you're going to have another experience, and you respond to that. And that's really kind of what, as the old saying goes, it's kind of what separates the men from the boys. Once you really understand that the dynamic of studio work, then you go in and you listen to whatever's going on and you address it on an individual basis. Okay. Because the variety of things. I mean, I could be doing metal one day. I mean, I remember I think I was doing something like Reba McEntire, and then I went from that to do Billy Cobham and did Spectrum with Billy Cobham. Yeah, so it runs this incredible gamut of genres, and each one's approached differently.
What do you attribute like your success to? Like, being able to be open-minded, to be more able to, is that something that you have to be going into a different situation, especially if you're recording 4 songs from different genres in one shot pretty much every day?
Yeah.
Is that something that you have, like, you just go in with an open mind, or do you get to practice, or do you know anything about the song beforehand?
Generally, you know nothing about what you're going into. You don't know the style. You don't know the genre. It's pretty rare that you almost never hear anything in advance. So kind of when the session is happening, that's the first time you're hearing any of this material. And but you learn. I think the most important thing is that I found for me personally, and what works for me may not work for somebody else, because this is really a subjective business. But I really kind of listen to a song, and before I start playing, and I listen to it and kind of think about, what does the song want from me? How can I contribute to this and make my part meaningful and supportive? But you learn real fast that you don't bring, like a big ego to the studio, because it's not about you. They may be hiring you because they know things you've done, and they love the idea of having you on the album because there's creds and credibility to having your name on their album and all that crap. But when you show up, you basically, you're hired help, and you look at the job that need to be done, and you do the job the best you can. And I always tell people that all my ideas are etched in mud, because you really have to be malleable in this. You can come in with an idea, and the producer or the artist may go, nah, I really don't like that. Could we try something else? And rather than being defensive, thinking, hey, man, that's my part you're talking about, you go, well, let's work on it. And you want, at the end of the day, you want the artist more than anybody to be happy. It's their project.
Oh, absolutely. And when you get into those situations, do you take like three basses with you, like a five string, a four string, or maybe a backup as well?
Yeah, I've got my normal arsenal is I have a bass that's been talked about for years and years and years that we built back in 1973 that I call Frankenstein, because it was never really an instrument. It was pieces that we put together, and it could have sucked, but it turned out to be the best bass I've ever had. And it's on probably, I would say, 85% of everything I've recorded since 73. But I'll take that. I have a signature model with Dingwall basses out of Canada, and they're up in Saskatoon. And that's my five string preference. And that's my main road bass. And then I have another signature model with Warwick that is a four string, a chambered kind of semi hollow body bass. And between the three of them, they cover pretty much everything I would need. If I think I need, like I might need a fretless for something, I'll bring a fretless with me. I have a Warwick fretless. But I've done some projects where like I have a Hofner, and if that seems like the perfect bass for something, I'll bring that. Otherwise, if I kind of know a little in advance what I'm going into, like I did BB King's 80th birthday album, and I used my Hofner on it and stuffed it full of foam rubber and made it sound like a funky old upright, and it worked perfect for playing with BB. So it's you kind of just feel it out and see what fits.
And you've got is it mandolin frets
Yeah,
on the Frankenstein, or all the
all my basses have mandolin frets on them, and the reason I have those is it came from the Frankenstein bass. The neck on that bass was a 62 precision neck, and I had a neck. I didn't have a body or anything like that. Somehow, I don't know how the hell I found it. Must have been dumpster diving or something, and found this neck. But my preference is jazz bass neck and not a precision bass. I like the profile of it. So John Carruthers, who was the repair guy at Westwood Music, which was really one of the main music stores in Los Angeles that all the guys hung out at, I talked to him about building a bass. And in order to do the neck over, we reshaped the neck into into the 62 jazz profile. In doing that, we had to pull the frets out. And I was walking around his shop and looking, and I saw this fret wire hanging on the wall. And I said, "What's this?" And he said, "That's mandolin wire." I said, "Let's use that." And he said, "Oh, yeah, it's not going to work. It's too small." I said, "Look, let's try it. If it sucks, I'll pay you for another refret and we'll use bass frets on it." It turned out to be the best decision I ever made. And people said, "Man, they're going to wear out fast." Well, we built that bass in 73. I've used it on thousands of recordings, and I'm on my third refret, and I play hard. So they last. But the thing that's beautiful about them is you can ease up your tension while you're playing, and you can really allude to almost fretless with it because the frets are so small on the bass. And a ton of bass players have played my bass and they went out immediately and had their basses redone in Mando frets. And both signature model basses, the Dingwall and the Warwick, both come with mandolin frets on them.
It sounds like you're a trendsetter.
Well, this worked for me. Some guys might absolutely love big jumbo frets, and it's all different. But for my needs, it just suited me. The sonic of it, the feel of it because I came from upright. I was a string bass player, and to have something on the neck that really feels like it's almost non-existent, I found very appealing.
And you began. By the way, I want to give a kudos to hello to the guys from Dingwall. Awesome fan frets on your basses. They sound amazing.
I love it, man.
It sounds so great.
Their bass is so good, man. They're just, the B string is to die for because of that, the fan fretting.
Yeah, there's some basses where like the B string, it's like almost like blowing air, and there's no really good tone on it.
Yeah.
I know Dingwall has some very, very good tone on their B string, and some of the models that I've tried. I've always
Yeah.
wanted to buy one, but unfortunately, I'm a bit of a Fender guy. I buy Japanese Fenders, and they work for me. And
Yeah.
I love it.
I've got a Mexican, road worn jazz bass, and I love it. I mean, instruments are instruments. I've got the few that I tend to work with in the studio, but I've got a few other basses that, I got rid of a ton of instruments over the years. I've got them in most hard rocks, and friends of mine, if their kids wanted to learn bass, I would give them a bass. And I would say, look, it would be nice for them to start with a decent instrument. And the only predication for me would be, if they decide they don't want to do it anymore, I want the bass back. If they decide they're going to stick with it, they can have the bass.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing gesture by you. Obviously, you're able to acquire so much musical instrument in your house. Where are you going to put it all, right? But
Well, and you've got two hands and a finite amount of gigs, and it doesn't do the instrument any good to be sitting in a closet. So better to get it in the hands of somebody that's going to give it a life.
there were many basses in the past that I've been able to play. The Fender I kind of went away from. I went to an Ibanez body, was a 5 string. It was nice and light. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great for playing on stage because I didn't feel like I was holding like 100 pounds on me. But
Yeah.
now I really feel that the Fender, it holds its weight. I know it's heavy, but it sounds great every time, especially with active pickups. It just
Yeah.
sounds great. Um, you've played a lot of legends, and recorded with many as well. I know back in the one band that you were part of, called Wolfgang, you were able to open for Led Zeppelin, I heard.
The very first time we ever walked on stage as a band, we'd never even played a club. The very first gig we ever played was opening for Zeppelin at Winterland in San Francisco. It's like, wow, and the band was great. I mean, we totally held our own on that show. People came back and said, "You guys are unbelievable." We had a monstrous singer, Rick Lancelot. Um, Great band. I mean, it was just a great band. And we were called Wolfgang because we were managed by Bill Graham, and Bill Graham's real name was Wolfgang. And how do you suck up better to a manager than to name your band after him?
Why I
Yeah.
can't think of any better way, to be honest, Leland.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are many things that you've accomplished in your career. Is there anything left?
Oh, every day. Yeah, I love working. I just, like day before yesterday. I mean, the hard part has been this past year, certainly, like for everybody with the pandemic, where a year's worth of work just evaporated immediately, and finding things to do. And the day before yesterday, I was actually in the studio for like the third time in a year. I've been doing stuff remotely at home, but we were actually in the studio doing a Japanese artist named Mari Hamada, and it was just myself and Greg Bissonette doing bass and drums, and it was thrilling to be. We both looked at each other and said, "God, do we miss this? It's just heaven." But I'm working all the time at home. I'm talking right now I'm doing a track for Julian Lennon, and Ian Pace from Deep Purple's been sending me tracks to do, and I'm busy with things. But as far as the future goes, my focus on the future right now is I'm in a band now called The Immediate Family. And it's the guys I've been with for 50 years for the most part. It's Danny Korchmar, Russ Kunkel, Waddy Wachtel, and Steve Postel. Steve is the youngster in the band. He's came in, I've known him about 15 years, but literally I started working with Russ and Danny with James Taylor on the very first gig I played with James was with them. And we are having the best time with this band. We got our third EP is coming out. We have an album that was supposed to be out in November. That, needless to say, we're holding on to it probably till summer. And Denny Tedesco, who did the Wrecking Crew movie, which is one of the great, music, documentaries about the musicians of the late 50s through the 60s, is doing a documentary film called The Immediate Family about us. And so there's lots going on. And I'm, it's weird. I'll walk by a mirror and I'll go, who the hell's the old dude in the house? Who let him in here? But in my heart of hearts, I still feel as excited about what I'm doing as I did when I first walked in a studio back in 1970. So,
And you love touring, right? You love touring.
oh yeah, man. To me, that's heaven right there. And we're waiting to hit the road. I mean, we've got stuff in the book for the end of the year, depending on the safety factor of it. I mean, I'm getting my second shot tomorrow. Everybody in the band is pretty much getting their second shots, so we can create our own little bubble and at least start rehearsing. And we're fortunate that we have a label called Quarto Valley Records, and they're still sitting on the new album, which nobody's heard. But we've told them, look, we got a ton of new material. Our creativity doesn't stop. And so they've said, go in the studio, cut another album. We'll release that in the beginning of next year. So, we're trying to make lemonade out of a serious lemon that we've all been dealt, this past year. And so I'm excited. I'm really excited about everything.
I would fully agree with you. I mean, that's the only way to do it, right? To move forward and plan ahead and be optimistic. And I'm excited for the Immediate Family record. I was just kind of immersing myself in this section earlier today and yesterday. And, I put it on, and I sometimes I put some music on. I go into the shower. I want to keep hearing some, and it gets really, really experimental. And that's what I love. Sometimes you're on Spotify. I don't know if you subscribe to Spotify at all, but it'll change the track on you to a different artist, and like you'll be like, "Who is this?" But it's not actually the same artist, right?
Yeah.
In this case, it went from one song to another, and then to something completely like offbeat and way more experimental. I thought it was somebody else. So I look at it, it said this section. It's like, holy moly! Like, there's so much to do within the confines of being an instrumental band.
Yeah.
Right? How do you get comfortable? How do you lay down a bass track in a song like that, where it's like, okay, the drummer's playing this type of beat. This is the feel I get. How does it fit with the music? How do you get comfortable?
Well, first off, the thing that was great was, even though it was really early on in our relationship as a group, because like I said, we came together with James Taylor, and within 2 years, I think we did the first Section album. But what we did was there was a like all over Los Angeles, there's these kind of industrial malls where there's like lots of little shops in them. And we rented one of those, and we would go at night when everybody else was closed down, and we would just play every night. And we had an old Sony cassette player that had built-in condenser mics, and we would set it in the middle of the room and recorded everything we did. And then we would sit and listen to the stuff, and we would build the songs out of jams and stuff like that. But the thing I think that's most critical, and the best advice I can give to other players, is listen to what the other people are doing. When you're in a band, it's not about you, it's about the band. And like when I'm playing, I'm so focused on what Russ Kunkel's doing, where Danny Korchmar was taking it melodically, or with the section we had Craig Durgee was our keyboard player. And we became like one mind through just playing together and listening to each other and knowing each other so well musically. And so it really evolved very organically. It wasn't like any kind of premeditated stuff. Nobody was sitting down coming in with charts or anything. Everything was really created sort of on the fly. And the thing that was good was we could document it all by recording everything we were doing, so that, like the next day, rather than sitting there going, God, what was that thing we did yesterday? We could play it and go, oh God, I had an idea for a bridge kind of thing, and it would just keep evolving. The hard part for us was that I think when we got signed to our record deal, we got signed because of all the people we worked with. And I think Warner Brothers, which was our first, we did 2 albums for Warner's and then 1 for Capitol. And I think their expectation was they were going to be getting like James Taylor meets the Eagles kind of a thing. And all of a sudden, we hand him over a record that's like rock fusion instrumental music. And I don't think they knew what the hell to do with it. But we had a great time. We ended up touring and opening for Mahavishnu Orchestra for about 6 weeks. And that was an unbelievable experience. And it was through that I became friends with Billy Cobham. So when Billy got his first deal to do Spectrum, he called me and he said, would you come to New York and work on the record? And I said, absolutely. And we did basically that whole record in 2 days. It's like almost one take of every song. And one of the highlights of that was I'd been on the road with Jan Hammer and Billy Cobham on that tour. But when I was in Wolfgang, we were managed by a guy who had another act called Zephyr. And Tommy Bolin was the guitarist in Zephyr. So when I walked in to Billy's session, and there's Tommy, I hadn't seen Tommy in years. And we had like a great, reunion. And Tommy was probably one of the baddest ass guitar players I've ever known in my life. He died it was only, I think, 26 or 28 when he died. But, he played with Deep Purple and the James Gang and all kinds of stuff. But man, it's, great memories. Tons of memories.
It's incredible. Like your career has spanned over decades, and it's just maybe time flew really fast for you, but you love what you're doing, and it seems you're very. I think you're one of those people who sits back and you enjoy what's going on, and then you lay your bass track, and you're a very humble person, and I'm very happy to finally have met you after all these years of watching you play and hearing your songs that you've collaborated with people. I would say that the Section record, it's great. You're right. Maybe the record label was hoping to have a song featuring James Taylor or something.
Yeah, they were hoping.
maybe now with all this drum and bass and remix stuff, they can probably put something in there, make a little remix about it. But
yeah,
but we'll see. When was the last time you seen yourself cleanly shaven?
1965, when they handed me my high school diploma.
Wow.
I mean, I cut it all the time just because if I let it keep going, it'll be in my bass. And, and you go to take your bass off and you get your beard caught in your strap locks. It's not really comfortable. It's like, but no, I just, it was one of those things that when I was in high school, it was a pretty repressive time in Los Angeles with schools. They had grooming guards, there was like real serious kind of conservative mentality. If you had any kind of, I drive by a high school now and I see kids, with beards and long hair, guys, and I go, man, that's like the antithesis of what I went to school with. So, but man, when they handed me the diploma, I just said, I am done with your rules and this bullshit. I am out of here. And I mean, I've been married 50 years and my wife's still never seen me clean shaven.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
My wife asked me to shave my face once to see what it would look like. And then after that, she just left me alone.
Yeah, grow it back.
Yeah, you become a completely different person, and plus your face either looks bigger or smaller, and it's very hard to eat with a beard as well. And
well, you develop a methodology to certain things. It's like every morning I start off with I make myself like a power smoothie, but I learned a long time ago, use a straw. If you go like this, the next thing you know, it's like running down your face and stuff. So, I just keep a nice metal straw. I don't want any kind of plastic crap. I have a nice metal straw that I can suck a smoothie through. And so you make compromises in your life of all kinds of things. And if you're going to commit to a beard, you have to commit to a certain protocol. For things, but it sure has saved me a lot of grief. Every morning I get up and I just kind of pretend I've gone to the poodle parlor and I just give a little fluff and fold and I'm out the door.
Yeah, who needs razors anymore, right?
Like yeah. Well, when I was a kid too, when I shaved when I was young, my dad taught me how to use a straight razor and how to strop it on leather. And I mean, that's, if you're going to shave, that is the ultimate shave. When you know how to do that, man, your face feels like a baby's butt, man. It is, it's just amazing. But it's almost like a Japanese tea ceremony, sitting there, with the leather, getting that edge on that blade and everything. So forget it. I'm just looking like this. This is it. Done deal.
It's all right. You come as you are. That's how
Yeah.
the Nirvana song preaches
Yeah.
to us. Finally, the question I want to ask you,
Sure.
it's about coffee. Do you drink coffee? How do you take your coffee?
I do not drink coffee.
You don't, huh?
No, I mean, it's been a weird career for me. I've never done drugs. I've never drank. I never smoked. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink tea. That's kind of, and I was on tour with Toto, and we were in Colombia, South America, and we were playing in Bogota. And one of the great producers I worked with for years, English producer Andrew Loog Oldham, who did like the early Stones records and all kinds of stuff. He had moved down to Bogota, and he lived there, and he has a remote radio show he does from there. But we hooked up. I invited him to the concert and everything. But we got together in the afternoon, and he said, "You like coffee?" And I said, "Well, not really. I'm not a coffee drinker." And he said, "Well, you got to come here with me." And there was a little coffee store in Bogota that apparently these people have a tiny plantation. It's a super kind of exclusive coffee. And I love the smell of coffee. I got about a block from their shop, and it was the most intoxicating thing I've ever smelled. And he said, "We got to go in there." And he got himself some. And I ended up buying a pound of beans, of their beans, and they freeze dried them so I could take them home and everything. Because my wife liked coffee, so we got a little, grinder and a French press for her to really do it right. But I tried it. The smell was amazing, and as soon as I tasted it, I was, nah, not for me. My palate just doesn't like it.
You're a straight bass kind of guy.
I am. I make Ozzie Nelson look like Ozzie Desad. I mean, it's like I'm like, I think some of the stuff too. I think one of the things that always appealed to me about bass is there's a certain psychology to it, a certain responsibility that comes with that instrument. You're the guy that's in the, with the drums in the back of the stage, and you let the singer and guitar players and guys, work the front of the stage. And occasionally during a set, you might come up and do something, and then you can recede back. And I kind of like that position of just like being the foundation for everything and holding it together. And I know a lot of times I'd be on the road, and like it would be like dinner time and everybody's out eating, and they'd come back in the dressing room, and I'd be sitting there with headphones on working on songs. And they'd go, "How come you're always doing this?" And I would look at them and I go, at the end of the day, there's only one guy on stage who actually has to know what the downbeats are. And that's me. Drummer can hit anything. I mean, you're not committing to a chord. But I said, keyboards, guitars, if you're not sure what's going on, you can always lay out for a second and then throw in a lick and look like a genius. But I said that, as a bass player, I really have to know this stuff. So I tend to put in a lot of hours in concentration and focus. Like when I went out with Toto, I only had 5 days to learn their show. And that's not a jam band. That music was not easy, but Mike Porcaro was so gravely ill at that point that, he called and said, "Can you take over?" And so I worked my ass off to learn that set. And the first gig we did was we flew to Dubai and did the Dubai Jazz Festival. So, just my nature.
I don't think there's anyone more dependable on bass that I could think of than you. And that's seriously coming, from my heart, as kind of weird as it sounds, like a guy saying that to another guy. But you know what? It's been an amazing career, and I really wish you many more thousands of opportunities. And
Thank you.
it's just going to get better and better, I think, because I know a lot of people really respect you, and I think you've built that just from being yourself and being kind of like the cool guy in the room who's just he's humble and he's open minded
Yeah.
and of course, you know, he loves what he does, and
Yeah.
that's what's I think what's taken you all the way 50 plus years into it, you know. And by the way, you know, I wanted to shave a lot, and I just don't look good, you know. It's like going back to it. It just why
Yeah,
waste
there's
money?
just no reason to, you know. I mean, it's like the stuff's there. It's, you know, why hide it? I mean, yeah, I'm not telling everybody to go grow a beard, but I mean, it's like it's for so many people it becomes such a dilemma. You know, should I do this? Or everybody's telling me to shave that, and then the minute they shave, everybody's going, "Oh no, grow it back. You look back." It's like it's you know, the thing is, if you cut it off, it can grow back. If you don't, you know, if you decide you want it back, yeah, whatever. It's like.
All right. Once again, Fan Room Live is where Leland Sklar will be next Thursday, March the 4th. Get your tickets now. It's an intimate experience to meet Leland Sklar and ask a few questions as well and get your answers back. I mean,
And it's going to be clothing optional, apparently. So, you know, really, let's have some fun.
yeah, don't tell Ken Davidian that because he's looking for another nude role in Hollywood. He played Azamat in Borat, so
Yeah.
you might have to pop in for that.
Well, you know, if I was going to have somebody be naked on it, that would be the cat to have.
Well, maybe your prayers will be answered. So,
Well, let's hope not.
thank you so much. Take
It's an
care.
absolute pleasure, Jordan, man. Anytime. Anytime. I'd be happy to come back.